Well, hello, guys. It is Tuesday afternoon. Oh, Tuesday morning. And today we are going to be talking about feeling bleh, not a full on depression, not feeling overjoyed and elated, obviously, but like that feeling in the middle where you're just like meh, like lackluster. You're just trucking along and sort of existing. I know that so many of you guys can relate to this because I hear it from you a lot. I sometimes still experience this, that feeling like, whatever, you're just going through the motions. Things aren't terrible anymore. They're not like you're not in a constant state of trauma response anymore. It's not that. You've just gotten to the point where things are just sort of underwhelming. You've almost maybe even become numb a little bit to all of it. And so there's just no emotional response whatsoever. It can come and go, this sort of emotional stagnance, if you will. Like you might notice that something happens, like a circumstance happens, and normally or before, historically, you would get either excited about it or have like an intense emotion, whichever end of the spectrum it is. But you're noticing that these days you don't have that at all. There's no reaction. Like, wow, I used to react to that. And that could be a good thing sometimes when you used to react intensely negatively. And maybe now you're not doing that so much. But there is a little bit of a difference between being numb to it and then expecting it and managing your mind around it and allowing it to be, because you know that you can't change somebody else's behavior or a circumstance that's already happened. So there's a difference there. And I'm talking about the numbness. So I think most of us are of the age or era that our parents didn't exactly teach us or show us that having an intense emotion or reaction or, wave of sadness, anger, or any of the emotions, they didn't teach us that this was okay. And in fact, feelings were something that we just put away aside. They're just things that we deal with and we don't really talk about them. We don't really pay attention to them. You may have heard your parents say, "Oh, I'll give you something to cry about," when you were maybe having an intense emotion and, that uncontrollable cry that we get, like and as a kid, when we're shut down in that way, we learn really quick that we must at all costs protect our emotions and hide them. And depending on whether you're a man or a woman, most of us are of the era where, for men, maybe your father said to you, "Oh, you're acting like a sissy, you're acting like a girl." And then if you're a girl, I don't know, my mom used to say, "Oh, don't give me that Sarah Bernhardt routine," which is funny because I still have no clue who Sarah is. But I remember her saying it to me an awful lot. I can laugh about it now because I know she didn't mean any harm. I'm almost positive she picked that up from her mother, who picked it up from her mother and whatever. We were just taught to go up to our room to have those kinds of emotions. If you're going to cry, go up to your room. And so, as you can imagine, the message that we got from that, most of us, is that emotions are that they're only for us to see, that we must guard them, that we must keep them behind closed doors. Nobody else has the time or the interest in hearing about them or experiencing them while you are. It's like a burden on anybody else to show them your emotions. I know this is very true for me. And again, like I said, I know it was no fault of my parents. They just didn't know. They weren't aware of the message that was sending. But I do know that I grew up and I ended up being very codependent and very concerned about taking up anybody's time or attention if they could spend it on more important things. That's the way I saw it. And so as a result, for me, what I ended up doing was learning how to talk really, really, really fast. Because I thought, well, the faster I can get my point across, the less time I'm taking up of the person I'm speaking with. And then they can go about their business because I didn't want to bother anybody. And now I look at that and I get sad for myself for sure. Like, it's like, I feel bad for that part of me that really felt that and thought that I was an inconvenience, that any of my thoughts or emotions or anything was an inconvenience for other people. And in fact, what that ended up doing, this is really not even what I'm talking about today, but what that ended up doing is causing me to not build solid relationships moving forward, because I was then never showing anybody who I really was and what I was really about, because I thought that that was not appropriate. And so then I always sort of felt alone, even around a group of friends, because nobody was interested in any of that. So it was like this machine that was created. So nobody wanted to hear about it. So I had shame about my own emotions. So I needed to hide those and keep them behind closed doors. And then I didn't want to inconvenience anybody. But then that also created this false front for me. So then I could never establish real, authentic relationships based on who I was. I based my persona around what I thought people wanted to see. It was almost not even, I want them to like me. It was more like, I must not show them. This is not what I'm supposed to do. Nobody wants to see me this way. So this is not really what I was talking about today. I guess that's just a little bit of the introduction. What I wanted to talk about was the fact that because we're not brought up to share our emotions, we end up not learning how to process them. We end up thinking and taking on the idea that emotions are inconveniences, especially the negative ones. The negative emotions are inconveniencing and inconveniences to our own selves. So when life happens, younger, when we have awkward experiences in high school and college, when we have insecurities and when we have heartbreak, when we have those things happen, we haven't been provided the skills to process these emotions. And instead, we unconsciously develop the skill of learning how to evade the emotions and solve for them by distracting ourselves, by using other behaviors to make us feel better, to make us feel fulfilled in some way or another. And so for some of us, that looks like I've shared with you guys many times, is that for some of us, that ends up looking like drinking, college parties, because that's confidence in a bottle. And it's also instant acceptance with whatever group of people that you were hanging out with. That was the cool thing to do. So it may look like that for you. It may look like these days going on your phone and scrolling the second that you have an emotion that you don't like. And it's, again, like I was saying, it's a very unconscious behavior, but we pick up our phone and nervously, frantically scrolling through our phone on Facebook or what other social media, or checking email or doing all that sort of stuff. And we just move our attention elsewhere, playing Candy Crush, doing, Wordle, whatever. This is how these days, many people end up coping with the inconvenient or negative emotions that we have. And what this does is we're sort of just putting the emotions off. So our brain learns the behavior, because if we remember, the motivational triad is to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and be efficient. So the brain, of course, at all costs, it wants to avoid the uncomfortable. The thing is when we don't make room for the negative emotions, we also eliminate the positive emotions, because as we know, it's on a spectrum. All of our emotions are on a spectrum, and we can really usually only feel to the negative the same amount of positive. But also, because if you are feeling in your everyday life after going through alienation and maybe currently still in it, it's been going on and droning on, and you have all of this built up, unprocessed, unrecognized emotion that you have just been kind of stacking up inside of you. And maybe on top of that, if you're a woman and you have hormones going on and, all the stuff that life presents to us, gets us on a daily basis. When we have all of that happening, and then we have grief that's happening also. You guys, I just realized that I'm in my getting dressed moo. I forgot to put my clothes on. I do my makeup and my hair in the morning, and then I just completely forgot that I still have my after shower moo on. I hadn't looked at myself fully. Whatever, it's on. I'm not going to stop now. But anyway, now I forgot where I was. Life is throwing stuff at us at all times. It's just part of the human experience. But on top of that, we have this grief. And so there's all of this like emotion that's sort of piled on top of each other there. And I don't mean to stress you out by saying that there's stuff that you need to do. No, but because we have all of that and our brains sometimes are just like, I'm fed up with feeling. Like I felt emotion for days. I've been crying for, years maybe. I'm constantly crying and letting out these tears and emotions, and I'm over it. So we can become numb because we have not actually learned how to allow them to be in our bodies and just understand that emotions are not problems for us to solve. They are just emotions. It's the story that we have about the emotions that really causes the suffering. So when we have this pile up of the emotions and of other stressors that life gives us, we tend to sometimes just shut off. And this means also that if we've gone through some grief, we're also feeling vulnerable and we don't put ourselves at risk for the negative emotions anymore. So like, for instance, what I mean here is in order to have a positive emotion, when I say positive and negative, you guys know that I say that because it's an easy way to describe, but I really think emotions are all neutral. Okay. If you look at them as neutral, then they're not problems. They are what happens in our body as a result of a thought, as I was explaining, I think in one of the recent episodes. But anyway, they're the physical manifestations. Maybe it wasn't, maybe that was in my coaching membership. Anyway, emotions are the physical manifestations of our thoughts. So, but they're not anything to solve for. We can look at our thoughts if we want to feel something differently because it's not helping us. Okay. But that's separate. So allowing emotions, no matter what they are, will help you to stop the stacking of all of these, like the stack of papers that you keep putting to the side and you keep saying you're going to do them. It's sort of the same here. And you just have to start at some point and then you can just make the decision that you're going to feel the emotions when they come up. There's nothing for you to solve for the past stuff. Let that be. They'll come up again. And when they do, just make the decision that you're going to allow them to be. Having said that, let's get back on track. Like, for instance, new friends ask us to go out to dinner, or maybe you're just started dating again after the whole mess of alienation. And that is nerve-wracking because how do you even address the whole issue of alienation and where your kids are? It just seems so draining. And so all of that. And because we have that story around it being so draining and we might risk rejection and we might risk being judged in that exhaustion of having to explain it on the date and what are they going to say and react and blah, blah, blah. Because we don't want to feel that and we're scared of the negative emotion or just don't have the mindset for it, then we also sacrifice the opportunity for the good emotions, the positive emotions, because the going out on the date might lead to something else, or just going out on a date and having fun, going to a nice dinner, going out with friends and maybe laughing your asses off. Who knows? Or just having a connection that you haven't experienced in a long time, since the alienation began. So in order to have the positive emotions, we need to go out and have these experiences, but we don't have these experiences. We don't put ourselves in a position for those experiences because we're thinking about all the negative things that could happen. And they very well could, but we're not willing to risk having the negative emotions in order to get to the positive emotions. So what happens? We end up with this flat, blah life. We're in mehville. And so we feel numb. Nothing really motivates us or causes us to feel emotion on either end. Now, when I say this, just know also, I will be addressing depression separately on a future episode. Okay. What I'm talking about here is the mehness that, honestly, let me just say this. Depression is also feeling the meh. It's not always you're feeling like awful, but you really have no ability to feel any of it. And it feels hopeless. Okay. Regardless, if you've been either diagnosed with depression, clinical depression, or you feel that you are depressed, everything I'm sharing here also will apply. Okay. But just know I'm not specifically addressing depression here. The blah is more like, it's like a step up from depression where you're like, things are fine. Things are fine. You just don't really feel like you're living. You kind of feel like you're existing, whatever. That's really what I'm talking about here. So what I think is really helpful I'll say this for depression too. You must every day. And this is going to sound so plain and simple, but I'm telling you, it will change your life if you're in this spot and you're not already doing it. You must get up every day, make your bed, and then get in the shower, do your hair, whether you're a woman or a man, do your hair and put on your, I'm saying this as I'm in my muumuu, but put on your uniform, like a power uniform for the day. I don't care if you have nothing planned. Well, we'll get to that in a second, or if you think that you're not going to see anybody that you know, it makes all the difference in the world to put your makeup on, do your hair, get in nice clothes, and look like you're going to work. If you're not, look like you're going to lunch. Do that. That is a must. Okay. It will change the way that you feel so quickly once you get dressed. I have never actually gotten dressed and been like, wow, I shouldn't have done that. That was a waste of time. Never. Okay. So this is important. Do that. It will change your mood entirely. Always make your bed, shower, get yourself fully dressed. Don't just slick your hair back if you're a mom. Don't just slick it back up in a bun. Do your hair. And if you don't have time, then start waking up earlier. Okay. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. Now, if you're still feeling ick after that, which is highly possible, you should also do future you favors. Set future you up for success. So think about the future version of you and what can I do to set her or him up for an amazing day, an amazing week, an amazing month. What little things can I do today that is setting me up in the future? This will help you not only to start getting some planning, like focusing on what's going on ahead of you, but also then you'll start to get into the action space in your head as opposed to just going through the motions. You become intentional and mindful in that moment. And so then you start to recruit your executive functions. And when you do that, you snap yourself, like you start to feel much better because your lower brain's not running you anymore. Okay. So ask yourself what you could do to set future version of you up. And then in your free time, go and do things for you. Okay. Even if you're on a budget. Okay. If that means that you pack up a picnic and you take yourself, walk your ass to the park. You don't have to have lots of money to do something like this. You can take yourself to the movies if you have a little bit of money. Okay. But instead, get out of your house is what I'm saying. Don't stay in it all the time. For me, it never ceases to amaze me how different I feel like my whole body chemistry is when I am feeling low energy and then I go out even across the street just to go to the grocery store. Everything changes. Like instantly my energy comes back to me where I thought like I needed to like nap. Like I was so tired and like, why am I so tired today? And if I get in my car, like within 3 minutes, my energy is like, woo. So that is another thing that I think is super duper helpful. And lastly, like I was making the reference just a little bit ago, not putting yourself at risk to have the negative emotions and therefore you're not experiencing the positive emotions either. Your life will change so drastically when you decide every day to take a risk in one way, just one risk every day. And that could be a little risk or it could be a big risk. Okay. But do something outside of your comfort zone every day. Reach out to somebody that you haven't reached out to. We're made for community. So reach out to somebody, start doing some live events, even if it's just to say hi to your family and friends on Facebook. Do something that causes you to feel awkward and uncomfortable and put you out there. Okay. Go out to dinner with somebody, sign up for the dating app. Whatever that is for you, like knowing too that you are risking having the negative emotions. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be awkward at times. It's going to be, you could risk getting hurt. You could risk rejection. Yes, those things do happen. But in the end, you're going to have a life that was worth living because you took the risk, because you stuck your toe out there. This, I think, is something that future you will never regret. Knowing, okay, so I'm going to put myself out there and I might get hurt. And that's okay. because I know that I can experience and move through hard things, difficult things. So yeah, that's what I have for you. If you're feeling numb or blah, then I think that these 4 things will help you to not feel blah and to get your blood pumping again, especially the last one, taking risks. So from backwards, I'm doing this by memory because again, I didn't have an outline. Take a risk every day, small or big. And by risk, you know that I mean within reason, and let's not take any risks in our life. Don't go base jumping or anything. I mean, you can, but please, I did not tell you to do that. So take risks every day. Find some way to put yourself out there in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Then what would future you, how could you set future you up for success? What little things can you do for future you? And future you, like I said, could be an hour from now, it's future you, or it could be a year from now, it's you. But how can you set yourself up in the future now? So think of little ways that you can do that, or big ways. That's number 3. Number 2 is to take a shower and get dressed every day, fully dressed every day. And I know that sounds so silly, but I'm telling you, every day, so important. Make your bed every day. That's number 1. And also I needed to add in there too, huge, hello, this is like my background, but is exercise, some form of exercise. Get your endorphins going. As you know, jumping jacks is my Windex. Jumping jacks, walk, does not matter. Get your blood moving, get the endorphins going. And I tell you that it'll have you feeling a lot more emotions on the spectrum. All of these things will give you the motivation to have the emotions and to risk experiencing the negative emotions. And so if you're feeling blah, or like you just can't feel the joy, ecstasy side of things, and you also can't feel the other side where, the despair and ways that you normally might react to situations. And you notice you're not really, you're sort of in that middle range, then yeah, get yourself moving in all senses. Okay. Start looking into your future, start getting excited about creating excitement for yourself about what is to come. Start considering possibilities for yourself by setting your future self up, considering what future you might be appreciative of the current you for doing. Okay. So that's what I have for you guys today. And that was pretty short and sweet. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you next week. Oh, yeah. Now, of course, obviously, make sure that you are clicking the follow button wherever you're listening to this. And I would love if you would rate and review. You know my reasons why. And the membership, of course, is always and still open. Okay. You can join it in the middle of the month. It does not matter. So I can't wait to meet you. See you soon. Thanks so much for listening today, guys. I'm honored that you chose to share your time with me. If you like what you've been hearing and you want more, come join me in the new monthly membership, where we take the concepts that you hear about here and, using a logical framework, you learn to apply them to your specific situations, upgrading your thoughts and your life, even while experiencing the grief of alienation. For more information, go to beyondthehighroad.com. See you soon.